Discover the Logitech Blue Sona, the ultimate XLR microphone for any audio recording. Immerse your audience with the Logitech Blue Sona, which captures every word with amazing clarity and studio-quality sound. With its sleek and elegant design, the Blue Sona adds to a professional touch to any audio setup. Whether you're a content creator, musician, or voice artist, the Logitech Blue Sona enhances every recording. Available now at logitech.com. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. I'm your host, Adam Todd, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this incredible educational journey. With over 2 decades of elementary school teaching experience, I understand the challenges that teachers face today. But not to worry, because together we'll tap into the power of motivation to create vibrant centers of learning. In each episode, we'll explore a wealth of knowledge, insights, and innovative teaching strategies that will give you the tools to take your classroom to a whole new level. From practical tips you can implement immediately to creative classroom management techniques that will make your days run smoothly, we'll leave you eager to try new things. Think of it as manageable, bite-sized professional development. You know, the kind of PD that all teachers love. This way, you can start to create an inclusive and stimulating classroom environment that nurtures the individual potential of every child right away. And here's the added bonus. We'll regularly be focusing on seamlessly integrating technology as a support tool for the classroom on multiple levels and across all subject areas. Together, we'll explore how technology can enhance the learning experience, foster critical thinking skills, and open new doors for you and your students' growth in a 21st century world. So are you ready to embark on this transformational adventure? Join me on Classroom Dynamics as we dive deep into the art of teaching, providing you with inspiration, tools, and motivation to elevate your classroom experience so that your students thrive. This is Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast, where inspiration meets innovation. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, the podcast that brings you the latest trends in educational technology and teaching strategies in bite-sized form. Hi everybody, I'm your host Adam Todd, and in today's episode we'll be taking a look at one of the most popular and free painting programs that's available to kids for both classrooms or even at home. We're talking about TuxPaint. TuxPaint is a free and open-source computer drawing program designed specifically for young children, typically between the ages of 3 and 12. It features a simple and intuitive user interface with various creative tools and interactive elements that make it an excellent first introductory program for young students who are just learning how to use a tablet or a computer. Now let's take a look at some of the features of TuxPaint. First, it has a very simple interface. TuxPaint has a visually appealing and straightforward interface that's so easy to use for young children to navigate. The icons are large, they're colorful, and they represent different tools and functions. Now, the drawing tools are fantastic. The program offers a variety of drawing tools such as brushes, stamps, lines, shapes, and text. These tools allow children to express their creativity and create artwork on the digital canvas. Stamps and effects also come with TuxPaint. TuxPaint includes a wide variety of stamps, which are pre-drawn images that children can add to their drawings. These stamps range from animals and plants to objects and symbols. Additionally, it offers special effects like blurs and tints and patterns, enhancing the creative possibilities for kids. Sound effects are also there and feedback as well. Now, who doesn't like sound effects? And what teacher doesn't like feedback, right? So youngsters definitely do, and TuxPaint provides auditory feedback for various actions such as selecting tools or applying stamps. This audio feedback engages young users and helps them associate actions with sounds. The magic tools might be kids' favorite. It's mine as well because TuxPaint features magic tools that add an element of surprise and playfulness to the drawing experience. For instance, the rain tool simulates falling raindrops when drawn on the canvas. TuxPaint also has a kid-friendly interface. TuxPaint's interface is designed to be child-friendly with features like an easy-to-understand menu system, large buttons, and text labels that use simple language. There's no file management either. TuxPaint saves drawings automatically, eliminating the need for children to navigate complex file management systems. This prevents frustration for younger users who might not yet understand file operations. Now, when we come back, we'll take a look at some of the benefits of using TuxPaint. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Are you a dedicated educator searching for fresh and engaging resources to inspire your students? Look no further than Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers. Discover a treasure trove of easy-to-use lesson plans, vibrant visuals, and interactive activities designed to captivate young minds and ignite their love for learning. Unlock the potential within your classroom with Highly Motivated, from differentiated lap books to test prep passages on a multitude of topics. Our wide range of materials cater to most elementary and middle school grade levels. Join the community of passionate teachers who have already transformed their classrooms. Visit Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers and get ready to inspire, motivate, and empower your students like never before. Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers, where knowledge meets inspiration. Welcome back to Classroom Dynamics. Today we're talking about Tux Paint. And now here are some of the benefits of using the popular painting program. Simplicity. Simple programs like Tux Paint are excellent for introducing young children to computers because they focus on a limited set of functions, reducing overwhelming complexity. Tux Paint also promotes cognitive skill development such as hand-eye coordination, spatial reasoning, and creativity. Children can experiment with colors, shapes, and patterns, fostering their artistic abilities. There's early computer literacy automatically embedded into the program. Tux Paint helps children become familiar with basic computer interactions like mouse control, clicking, dragging, and using menus. These skills are foundational for future computer use. There's engagement and exploration. The interactive and playful nature of Tux Paint encourages exploration and experimentation with all of its tools. Children can learn by doing, discovering how different tools and actions affect their creations. It's safe and age-appropriate. Tux Paint provides a safe digital environment for young users, as it's designed with their age group in mind. It doesn't expose them to inappropriate content or online risks. Confidence building is automatically a big plus with Tux Paint. Successfully creating digital artwork using Tux Paint can boost children's confidence and a sense of accomplishment, encouraging them to engage further with computers and technology. And the bridge to other software does just that. Becoming familiar with a simple program like Tux Paint can serve as a foundation for understanding more complex software applications as children grow older. So all in all, Tux Paint is a fantastic first introductory program for young students learning to use a computer due to its user-friendly interface, engaging tools, and the cognitive and developmental benefits that it offers. Its simplicity and focus on creativity make it an effective tool for nurturing early computer literacy and artistic expression in children. Tux Paint is available for free at tuxpaint.org/download. When we come back, we've got the lead developer of Tux Paint, Bill Kendrick, with us here today to talk about all things Tux. So don't X out just yet. We'll be right back.
Your world is about to change from this to this. Promethean is here to help streamline your transition back into the classroom with our award-winning active panel that will transform your classroom from this to this. No matter what tools you need to tackle this next school year, we've got you covered. Learn more at prometheanworld.com.
Welcome back to Classroom Dynamics. Bill Kendrick is a visionary software developer and educator known for his significant contributions to the world of open source software and children's educational tools. He gained recognition as the lead developer of Tux Paint, a widely acclaimed drawing program designed specifically for young children. Bill's journey in the software industry began with a passion for both creative expression and education. Armed with a background in computer science and a strong desire to make a positive impact, he embarked on a mission to create a tool that would empower children to explore their creativity while also fostering valuable skills. His dedication to open source principles ensured that Tux Paint remained freely available to children all around the world, regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds. Beyond his technical expertise, Bill's deep understanding of educational practice enabled him to shape Tux Paint into a powerful learning tool. He crafted an environment where children could experiment with digital art, learn hand-eye coordination, develop fine motor skills, and even grasp early concepts of computer interaction, all while having fun. Bill Kendrick's work on Tux Paint earned him numerous accolades from both the open source community and education sectors. His commitment to providing children with a safe and creative space in the digital realm has left an indelible mark on the software landscape, and thanks to his leadership, TuxPaint continues to be a beloved and impactful tool in classrooms, homes, and community centers worldwide, inspiring the next generation of digital artists and creators. With a career defined by innovation and passion for enriching children's lives through technology, Bill Kendrick remains an influential figure in both the open source and educational realms. It's my pleasure to welcome Bill Kendrick to Classroom Dynamics.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you. I have to tell you that I've been using TuxPaint for years with my kids, my school kids, my own kids too. They've used it as well. But the kids in school, kindergarten kids, first grade kids, it has been such an impactful program for them to use to get started in using computers every day. And granted, they're of course born into this stuff now, whereas you and I probably were not. And it's just an amazing tool for them to use, and I appreciate it because of all the work that they do, that you've already put into that they're able to do because of that. And it really makes teaching a lot of fun.
Cool. I'm glad.
So what inspired you to develop TuxPaint, and how did you envision it would be so popular in schools today? Did you think that children would be using this for educational experiences and purposes?
So it's funny. I was part of a Linux user group back in the late 90s is when it started, 1999. I had just gotten into Linux, and I had been writing games kind of in college on like the Solaris, like the Unix workstations, things that I would never be able to afford at home. And then I discovered that Linux existed, so I got into that. I didn't like the alternatives. They were either not as good or too expensive. And in running that club, one of my friends, I've told the story a million times. He had two children that were 4 and 7 at the time. And, I'd done some talks at the club on GIMP, which is kind of like the Photoshop of open source. And he said, are there any kids programs? Because, GIMP is hard for adults. Like, I can't imagine giving my 4-year-old this. And I'm like, sure, I can write something. I figured it'd be like a weekend or two project. And that was 21 years ago now. I guess I didn't expect it to blow up like it did. I thought I'd have this little niche in whatever Linux users were out there. I really hoped at the time, like, I want Linux to become a big thing. I was very open source proponent. I was, trying to get people to use Linux in schools. But, I figured that the bigger names out there, like the Kid Pixes and so forth, would be, the ones that normally people would go to. And I kind of lucked out at one point when Apple switched from Mac OS to Mac OS X 10, whatever you call it, all of a sudden KidPix didn't work. So all these teachers were scrambling. Oh my goodness, the school upgraded everything and now I can't use the tool. And word got around real fast about my project, which had been ported because of being open source to Windows and Mac and a bunch of other random different things, little handheld PDAs and so forth at the time back then. So yeah, it kind of like spun out of control in a sense. But, I had always hoped it would be, well received. I put some thought into the design. I tried to keep it real simple. I tried to keep it not real in your face, like not super extreme looking. I didn't want to kind of condescend the children. So I think it's benefited from that. And it's kind of funny because nowadays I'm much more active on social media when it comes to TuxPaint. And I'm seeing these, to me, because I'm old, kids who are in their teens and 20s on Twitter talking about it and reminiscing or using it, not always ironically. And some of them do some incredible work. And, sometimes, a person will look at it and go, man, why does that look like it's from the 2000s? And like people will jump in and say, don't change anything, because there's this huge amount of nostalgia. It definitely has that like 2000 Mac OS 10 Aqua style, candy, bright colors, gem looking thing, which I do kind of look back at sometimes. I go, yeah, that's maybe a little too much, but no, nobody wants me to change it really.
I got to tell you though, I think that's what gets the kids so into it. I think just the design of it, the look of it, I don't think they're looking for, fancy schmancy, over the top kind of stuff. And I appreciate it because I use it as my first program to teach, my first graders how to use a computer. So all your icons, all the way, it's just the design, the layout, what it does, clicking, dragging, hand-eye coordination, all of that stuff combined does what I'm trying to do, which is to teach them how to use a device, whether it's a
Yeah,
computer or, an iPad or things like that. So I appreciate that. And I think that's what does make it so popular.
excellent. Yeah, as somebody who's been using computers since the early 80s and had a particular point in time like the Mac OS System 7.5, KDE 3, like that to me was peak. I love the UI, I love the way things looked. Since then, everything's gotten real flat. So I actually did one time a kind of an April Fool's post of, here's the professional version of TuxPay, and it was just boring looking. Just all the icons were flat, all the graphics were just flat, 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 and it's it's a joke. And some people I think maybe think, oh, maybe that would be good if it were like that.
That is awesome.
But yeah,
That's great. The one thing I think I like the most about it, again, besides it being so simplistic, the fact that even kids at home, parents at home, they can download it. I know they've told me this, that they've downloaded it on their phones and their iPads and their computers at home. So anything that I'm doing now then extends into the home, and there's that their school home connection that I don't know if you even know that takes place, but it does. And I think that also helps in teaching kids how to use the computer, and then the parents coming around and showing them a thing or two as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And that's another nice thing about open source is, I could just one day say, I don't care anymore. I give up. I'm not doing this ever again, or hit by a bus, or who knows what. It's not going to go away because I'm gone. And it's not going to go away because, oh, now there's a new version of Windows. Now there's a new version of Mac. People will be able to keep it going. It's not going to get stuck in any particular place and just, wither on the vine. So that's wonderful.
Something I've always been curious about is, do you know this? I don't know if you know the numbers, but approximately how many times has it actually been downloaded? Do you have those ideas?
I've looked at the SourceForge numbers, and that's only one set of numbers because who knows how many other software download sites out there exist that have mirrored it, or like a Linux distribution, they have it just internally and just say install this thing, and it just goes and gets it from their repositories. But I know at the SourceForge project, it's been millions and millions. I haven't even looked recently, but it's been millions and millions, which I try not to think about because that's really mind-boggling sometimes.
I mean, think about it. Even if it was downloaded 10,000 times, I think that's a lot. But yes, millions. Whew, that's awesome.
You start thinking like that was as big as the city I grew up in. Okay, that's as big as San Francisco. That's a state. That's a country. Yeah, it's wild.
That's amazing.
And there's always going to be little kids. There's always new users.
I'm telling you, I use it every year to introduce, and it has not failed me once. I've been teaching, doing media arts for 15 years and 16 years. It's just, I'm telling you, it is my go-to. The kids love it. I love it. I have not changed that is the program I teach to introduce computers.
Nice.
It is the best.
I realize that a lot of teachers and teachers especially out there are, they've set it up. They're ready to do it. And that's when I'm very careful to, if I add any new features or change anything, I make it simple to disable the new stuff or keep it simple for the little kids, not quote unquote move the cheese around too much, and make it where if you had a curriculum that you created around it 5 years ago, it's going to still work. There might be some new features that have been added since, but you can easily ignore them or turn them off or whatever. So I tried to be kind of cognizant of that.
That's a good, I'm glad you said that, because it's a good segue into my next question, which was, when you were designing it, when you were creating it first, or even now lately, what kind of challenges have you encountered when, creating this kind of platform that, it could go either way, and kids, could get, a little distracted or upset if something changed. Like, what does that all play into the whole package?
Yeah, I think so. For me, some of the bigger features that we added that were ones that I probably pushed back more on, and part of it had to do with keeping the interface simple, but also not wanting to overcomplicate the code and being lazy. It's a side project, right? But I benefited from volunteers working on it. Was the labels feature, and that's the we had the text feature where you could add text, type text on the screen, and it gets splatted on the canvas, and then you could scribble over it or do the effects on it, whatever. And teachers basically demanded, we need a way for the kids to go back and edit it or move it around or change the color or whatever. So that's where that feature came from. So that's why it's kind of it's a little bit of an oddball feature. It interacts a little differently than anything else in the program. And I've had people ask about doing kind of the same thing with the stamps. And I've thought about it. I think I have a ticket open for that, but I'm not sure that I'm going to go that far, because I try to focus on the fact that this is for little kids, and there's a lot of people who are older who are like, oh, it'd be great if it did this. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but I think you're old enough to to
Now,
graduate to a professional, like, adult tool now.
now, isn't that amazing though, that, what your little side project has become and how teachers using it and saying, well, now I would love to do this because I see that potential. I
Mhm.
see what I could do with it. Or if it did have that feature, this is what I could do now. How
Yeah.
awesome is that for you?
That totally is, yeah. Because when I've worked on educational kind of software, and this is basically the biggest and most successful and most complete one that I've worked on, it's always been, well, this is fun, but I'm not an educator, and like back at the time, I don't have kids, so I don't really know for sure what is going to be good. So a lot of it was kind of like thinking back to me as a kid, and of course that was old 8-bit days, or I've often mentioned how the original Palm Pilot, if we can call it that, the Palm OS devices, back then, the simplicity of those, and the turn it on, turn it off, everything is back where you expect it to be, interface. That was something that I baked into this. Even like the early TiVo, the way the TiVo worked and how simple it was, I kind of took those things into mind, and that's kind of how I designed it. I wanted it to have that feeling of, it's just something that works, and there's no technicality about it. There's no file dialogues or dragging from external things to get it to do stuff. It's its own little kind of enclosed sandbox. It can kind of talk outside a little bit, like you can export things now and so forth, but that was never really the intention. It was something that you just imagine your computer as an appliance and all it can do is tux paint. That's what tux paint satisfied in the beginning. So
That's amazing. I mean, like even open source software like TuxPaint has significant impacts on accessibility. What
mm.
factors went into your decision to make TuxPaint an open source application, and how has it contributed to the program's widespread adoption in an educational setting like a classroom?
Well, two things. One, the open source, obviously, yeah, it makes it free, as in price. Freeze and beer, as they used to say. Freeze and speech, freeze and beer. So the fact that it's freeze and beer, schools can use it, they don't need to pay for it, that is a huge benefit. But the fact that it's open source, not only does that allow contributors to work on it, but I think they feel safe doing so. They feel like, if I contribute to this thing, it's going to remain open and free, and I'm not just giving my work to some random guy named Bill who's going to go squander it someday and decide, or end the project or whatever. It's always going to be there forever, basically. And it would not be where it is right now without all the contributions from literally hundreds of people, a handful of whom I've met, a few I knew beforehand, mostly from that Linux user group, admittedly. But like otherwise, it's just people all around the world that I know their names. I probably don't know how to pronounce their names, but I know their names. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just know their email, because they're just an email address, or a nickname or whatever. But yeah, it to me that's really weird. I would love one day to do a world tour, just fly around the world and meet all the people, but it's going to be impossible. There's just too many of them. So,
Have you ever thought about, or did it ever cross your mind when it started to get, I don't want to say too big, but bigger, where you did have to rely on other people to help contribute to edit and change and modify? Did you ever think of doing a web-based version of it?
I've thought of web-based versions, and I think these days it's possible. I'm gonna go on a complete random tangent. There's an old game on the original PlayStation that I really like called Wipeout, which is a fast-paced techno music racing game, basically futuristic thing. Somebody has basically the source code was apparently leaked, and they got it where you can run it in a browser. I literally was in a web browser running this thing that was a PlayStation game 20 years ago. And I'm looking at that, it's all 3D and whatnot. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, with the kind of things that just a standalone web browser could do, yeah, it'd totally be possible. There's a process of getting it into that format, which I haven't had the time to look into. I've started a few times, and it was one of those situations where I go, okay, I should do it this way. And then 5 years later, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm ready to do it that way. And people say, no, that's not the way to do it anymore. That there's a new way now that Google came out with, or whatever. So I've never had the time to do that. But again, it doesn't have to be me. If somebody is really interested in doing that, have at it.
That
Like,
would be pretty cool to
yeah,
have
like,
the ability to have it downloaded onto a device, but also if you are out and about and you just wanted to access the program itself just to play around, just to draw, just for fun.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah. It's not too big though. It's not a huge program.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Android port, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know. I wouldn't know the first thing about how to build it. It's all Para and some other folks and that actually took quite a bit of work to kind of bring it up to a newer version of kind of underlying libraries that I've finally accepted and now we're using all the time. That's the other thing. I'm always big on backwards compatibility. I mean, TuxPaint ran on Windows 95 until a few years ago when we finally said, okay, those are so old and dead and it's beneficial for us to move on. But for the longest time, it was like, it is so simple that, yeah, if a school or somebody's got to just throw away computer and it's running this ancient thing and it can't run anything newer, it can still run TuxPaint. It might not run it very well, but it can still run it. But yeah, like the Android port, the iOS port exists, but that one's actually not an official one. That was kind of a third party took the source and decided to go with it. And I've said, okay, that's okay for now because we don't have our own official version yet. And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the hoops you need to go through with Apple to actually get something in the App Store that none of us really want to own yet.
Right.
That's a nice thing about open source on Linux and Windows and stuff. You just go, we've built it. Here's a copy of the binary. You could just download it off our website or FTP or who knows what, and not worry about it. But then you have these weird ecosystems where you have to go through certain channels and get approval and have somebody own it officially and so forth. That makes it a little bit more difficult. But even the iOS one is out there, and it's, again, because it's open source and they were able to take the code and do what they needed to get it to run. So
I got to tell you, even with touchscreens today, forget about just iPads, but iPads obviously first, but even touchscreens on PCs and Macs now does help, especially with the kids in drawing. It almost gives them, they could use a stylus, they could use their finger. It gives them almost more of a realistic feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm jealous because I don't have a touch screen. I have a very, very old external USB Wacom that I plug in every once in a while, and that's when I can maybe draw a little bit better. But yeah, being able to draw on the screen would be fantastic. I don't have a tablet myself. I've got my little Android phone and it's all very small and my eyes are not great, but it's fun to toy with sometimes. But yeah, I see some of these, I've mentioned these kids that I see on Twitter and I look at, I'm like, how on earth did you make that? How did you draw that in TuxPaint? And they go, oh, I've got a 24-inch touchscreen tablet laptop. I didn't even know those things existed. I mean, you've got like this absolute massive professional, probably cost thousands of dollars device, and you're running TuxPaint on it.
That's how.
Yeah, that's how. It's amazing. I've seen people use it on kind of those I'm not sure how to describe it, like the projector screens where you can
the interactive whiteboards.
Yeah, interactive whiteboard. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So I've seen that. That looks really cool.
I actually do use that in my class. I have a 75-inch interactive white panel, and I use that as incentive. And for the kids who are really doing nice work or behavioral wise, I will invite them to come up, and you have to see their eyes light up when all of a sudden they go from, their compact screen in front of them, which, it's a nice size, to a 75-inch where like, wow, I get to draw on this now, it's pretty cool.
They have to stand on a stool like the shorter kids. No,
you could drop down and but it does work. They love it. And again, that's because cool. they're using their finger, or they can pick up a stylus and really there's this giant canvas, that big white space that's in front of them. They love it. They love getting lost into that. That's love awesome. Incorporating the tools, the magic tools. I save that for one of the last ones, and sometimes they find it on their own because they are pretty good, but I save that for one of the last lessons I do because they get so into just the magic tools alone. The magic tools are like the best thing on the face of the planet when we get to that. So it's nice. Pretty interesting. Any special updates that are being worked on that you can share with us, or any sneak peeks into things along those lines?
No, we had our 20th anniversary birthday last June, and I wanted to make sure we had a new release out, so I made sure everything was all the bows tied and whatnot, and got that out. And then like I was kind of on a roll, and I just kept having ideas, and I kept going in the shower and like watching the water rivulets go down I'm like, oh, what if I tried to do something like that? I never got that one working, but I was just brainstorming constantly, and it was a real nice break from the kind of more stressful, drier day job work. So we just cranked out so many releases in the last year And the latest one I think was, was it May? I don't remember anymore. I can't even remember anymore. And right now there's been almost no activity. The main activity we've had is a bunch of translation updates that some people have been catching up with. There's like almost all the documentation is in French now. Just got a bunch of Portuguese updates today. But I'm taking a breather for now. So nothing new, nothing big and new to announce now. I think one of the next features that I'll probably tackle that is a more complicated thing, and a lot of it has to do with the UI, is a lot of people have requested, again, it's these kids on Twitter, the ability to change the size of brushes. We recently added a way to change the spacing of the brushes with a little meter at the bottom, so you can have little dotted lines and whatnot, or make them real thick next to each other. And somebody said, well, I don't like that I only have the brushes in those sizes on the screen. I want to be able to make that circle be really big or that flower be really big. So that's one of the big ones I'm gonna have to tackle as a major feature enhancement. But yeah, for a lot of this last year, it's Bill going crazy adding magic tools, basically. And I sometimes I wonder what the other developers think of me, like, oh god, what's he doing now?
That's the best place to add things. I got to tell you, I know I said it already, but the kids, the magic tools it really is magic, for lack of a better term. They just, they really do utilize them, and you have to see sometimes the way they think, their thinking process. I'm going to use this particular magic tool with what I drew because it works, not just because. And it really does spark creativity. It really does push their thinking and even their communication, because once one kid is doing it and someone sees, now it's, oh, how did you do that? You got to show me how to. And these are first graders, they're 7, and they're really amazing with the communication and teaching each other.
That's awesome. I've had absolutely that question come up. I'll look at something on Twitter and they'll say, I made this in TuxPaint. And I go, no, you didn't. What? How did you do that? And they'll post a video or they'll explain exactly their steps. I go, wow, you can
you could do that.
yeah. Like I can make a pretty realistic looking star field. And it was just, they spam it with noise and then they do the contrast thing. And then they just have a couple steps that they figured out. One of them, it looks like you're looking through like a macro lens at like some water droplets or something. I'm go, how did you even do that? Like you didn't draw that. And they said, no, I just did this thing over and over and over again until it spread out. And I go, wow, I never tried clicking it more than a few times. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? And to me, it's like some of this stuff is things I didn't write. A lot of it's stuff where I don't quite understand the math, but I got it to work. And it's just really fascinating to see what people can make it do that I never expected and or maybe didn't intend. So yeah, that's fun.
And that's what's going to probably continue to happen, where people start to play around and experiment and try, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I guess, because I've actually seen some of the pictures too online, and they look realistic. Some of them, they really do. They look like someone took a digital picture using their phone or their camera, whatever, and it just has a very realistic look to it. Some of them. That's when I got the idea. That was one of the things I did recently. Was I went through and I interviewed a number of these artists that I found online, and I'm like, I'm fascinated. Like, I know it's a little greedy of me, like, but I want you to spend some time explaining, like, who are you? How did you get into this? And some of these people are like, a lot of them are, 20 something. Some of them are close to my age. Some of them are teenagers. I made sure they got parent approval to send me their responses and so forth. Like, how did you find it? How did you get into it? Why are you still using it as, not a 5-year-old or whatever? What's your go-to tool? What other kind of artistic stuff do you do? What other hobbies do you have? Like, I wanted to, like, who are these people? Because all I see is icon, weird name, photograph on Twitter, or drawing on Twitter. And I'm like, I'm very interested. Like, I have this opportunity to figure out, like, where have you come from and how did you figure out how to do this stuff? So that was a lot of fun. And they all loved seeing each other's responses too, which is cool. I think more times than not, I see, hey, does anyone remember this program from when they were in elementary school and I'm in college now, and look what I just created. I see, you see that time and time again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. We have a couple minutes left. We're going to play a game that I like to call input output, where I'm just going to ask you a question. Just give me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
It's what's coding right here, right? Favorite app that's on your phone. It can't be TuxPaint though. Favorite app that's on your phone that you can't live without.
Podcast Addict.
Ah, that's a good one. I like that.
I'm always with the headphones on.
Favorite tool in TuxPaint?
Oh, you have to stump me.
I did stump you. I think I just stumped the creator of TuxPaint.
Oh yeah. I mean, it probably depends on the day of the week. Boy, I guess any of the things that mess with the colors, like the negative, the invert, those kind of things, where you can take a picture and just like photocopy, X-ray, whatever. How about those?
Works. Favorite feedback that you've ever received from someone who's used TuxPaint?
Oh man, you're stumping me again. I've had some stories, I think a couple times, from people who basically they were having a real bad time in their life, maybe with health or something, and they used it as an outlet to relax, to forget about cancer or something, for example. And I've had a few of those, and that brings a tear to the eye. Like, oh, I'm helping. It's not just having fun, but I'm actually mental health helping somebody somehow. So that's makes me happy and proud.
That's inspirational. That's fantastic. Success is always good to have, but what's one failure that you've had that people may not be aware of?
Boy, have I ever failed? No.
Hmm.
I guess I guess to get personal, and this is coming up, and this also has to do a little bit with my hearing loss lately, but communication issues. I have some communication issues that my wife is extremely patient with, and she's super smart. So she helps me understand. Do you realize what you just did? And I go, no, but now that you mention it, okay.
Finally, if you can go back in time to when you were a kid and give yourself one piece of technology from today, what would it be?
Oh man, all of it.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of my children. My teenager plays with Scratch, and he's doing stuff in 3D and all these things that I only dreamt of as a kid, and learning things that I still haven't had the chance to learn. And yeah, so I'm jealous of the high tech stuff. I mean, I was into the high tech stuff as a kid too. I had the computer as a kid. It was pretty rare back then, but I mean, it was nothing compared to these days.
Right, exactly. You had what you had at the time, and it
Yeah.
was probably pretty good at the time.
Little side note, I actually still do have my original 8-bit computer from 40 years ago, and I still play with it.
Wow.
And I was just on vacation, and I spent the mornings when everyone was sleeping in working on a game that I haven't finished yet. But yeah,
It still powers up.
Oh yeah, it's on
Wow.
the internet now. There's
That's great.
people bring these things to life
Yeah.
in ways that you would not have imagined back in the day. So
That's
it's pretty
great.
fun.
So before we go, just explain to everyone who's listening, where can teachers and families go to get TuxPaint, and what do they have to do for it?
Just go to tuxpaint.org, and there's a download link on the side, and you pick whatever platform you're using, and you click the download. That'll lead you over to SourceForge, which is where the project is hosted, source code and files and all that good stuff. And it'll download from there. So
Awesome.
and
Listen,
email me if you have questions.
Also, you want to give your email? You can.
Sure. Bill@newbreedsoftware.com. It's long, but it's a lot easier to say than my actual personal account, which is just gibberish.
That's fantastic. I guess people are going to send you now their ideas that they want for the next couple of updates.
And I accept artwork for consideration into the gallery. So
That's awesome.
yes.
Listen, this has been fantastic. Like I said, I've been using TuxPaint for many, many years. So this is really a nice highlight for me, and,
Cool.
and a fun chat that we've had today. So I really do, I love TuxPaint. I know the kids that I work with love TuxPaint. I know their families love TuxPaint. And this has been a lot of fun just chatting with you today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for finding it and sharing it. And I'm glad you all enjoy it. So
Absolutely. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Classroom Dynamics, where knowledge and inspiration meets innovation. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion and found it both to be insightful and uplifting. And as always, my goal is to provide you with practical strategies, engaging stories, and powerful insights that can fuel your motivation as an educator. I believe that when knowledge and inspiration do come together, incredible things can happen in your classroom. And for all of you who may feel that it's too late to strengthen your craft, I challenge you to make it your mission to do so. You've worked hard to get to where you are today, and it's never too late to infuse new life into your work. So why not make today that day to do so? But before we go, I want to take a moment to thank you, our amazing listeners. Your dedication to creating a dynamic learning environment for yourself and your students is truly inspiring on its own. I'm Adam Todd, and you've been listening to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. You can follow Classroom Dynamics on Twitter @ClassDynamics. If you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'll be back soon with more captivating conversations, inspiring stories, and strategies that you can implement immediately into your everyday routines. Until then, keep igniting that spark in your classroom and never stop believing in the incredible impact you have as an educator. You're more powerful and inspirational than you think.